Now, joining us now from the state of California is Jessica Millen Patterson. She's the former chairwoman of the California Republican Party. She is now chair of the No on Prop 50 campaign. We've been talking about it here for weeks. This is Gavin Newsom's redistricting scheme out in that state to try to basically steal districts for his party. He's saying it's retaliation for Texas, but I think this is about burnishing his partisan bona fides ahead of what is obviously a presidential campaign. Jessica, welcome back to the show.
Hey, great to be with you guys.
All right, so you are the chair of No on Prop 50, and we've made it very clear editorially here that we are with you. We would vote no if we lived out there. We've urged our listeners in California, we have a lot of them out there, to vote no and to participate. And yet, it looks like the messaging from the left and from the Democrats has been pretty successful. They're saying this is a way to express opposition to Donald Trump and to fight back against a red state like Texas. They've bombarded the airwaves. They've outspent you guys massively. And the polls suggest like this thing has really gotten away from the no campaign, in some cases like a 20-point spread. I saw a few headlines saying the Republicans have basically given up on trying to defeat this thing. Is that true? Are there any reasons for hope ahead of tomorrow?
There's a lot of reasons for hope. And not only have Republicans not given up on fighting this, but this isn't a Republican-Democrat issue. I know that Gavin Newsom would like to frame it that way because, as you mentioned, there is one page in the playbook that California Democrats have, and it's to appeal to the Trump derangement syndrome. And really, when we look at California, and especially these statewide propositions, California voters are much more conservative when it comes to the issues. In fact, in 2024 alone, 89% of the vote went with California Republican Party's position on those statewide propositions. So we've been out there and we have been talking to Democrats. We've been talking to independents, a lot of people who believe our state is on the wrong track. And when you look at the returns that have come in, 93% of the people that have returned ballots were somewhere in our contact universe. And that means they are already on board with us and we're trying to turn them out, or they were persuadable. They knew that when they voted back on Citizens Redistricting Commission in 2010 and 2008, it was the right decision then, it was the right decision now. So we're going to continue through tomorrow night when polls close to talk to those voters and turn out those voters, and we think that we're going to be able to stop Gavin Newsom.
I mean, so the polling that we've seen that I referenced, you think that's off, like off by 20 points off?
I think that when you look at statewide ballot initiatives, I think it's very difficult to get the right modeling when it comes to polling. And that's why you have to find those independents, those Democrats that believe the state is on the wrong track. And you got to communicate with them. They just need the excuse to vote for what's best for California. And they know that giving this power to politicians, like it used to reside with the politicians, where they drew their own districts, chose their own constituents, and essentially chose winners and losers, it didn't work for California. And so that's what we've been doing over the last several weeks. And yes, we have been outspent, but that's why we have to get incredibly targeted with our messaging. And so utilizing digital, utilizing direct communication via text, this has been something that's been really successful for us.
Now, here's the thing. You mentioned that the Democrats and the left have one page in their playbook that they come back to over and over again, which is Trump. You called it the Trump derangement syndrome factor. But in a state as blue as yours, it kind of seems like that is an effective and potent page. Like they turn to it over and over again for good reason from their perspective, right? I mean, we saw at the beginning of this whole fight, polling suggested that people were against this. A majority of Californians were against this idea because, as you noted, Californians said, no, let's go to an independent commission. They voted for that in a sizable majority not long ago, so they were predisposed to like the idea of sticking with the independent commission, which is still, I think, too lopsided in my mind. But putting that off to the side, once they got hammered with all these ads saying it's really a referendum on Trump and Texas, it seems like at least the polling swung pretty dramatically. So I'm just trying to figure out how Republicans or independent-minded people trying to do things like this, good governance ideas in California, how do they get around the argument of just Trump, 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 if that seems to resonate with so many Californians?
Well, sometimes it does, and especially when you have a statewide election that has Trump versus Kamala. When it comes to the ideas, though, it's a little bit different, and that's what we've tried to really focus on. We've tried to focus on that good government side of things, and this isn't about Trump. This is about California. And then when you point to the people that are drawing the maps and all of the different ways that they have failed Californians, whether it's our affordability crisis, our homeless crisis, public safety, our children's education, they have failed us on all of these different things. To give them that type of power would be a misuse. And so that is the message that we have continued to put out there. Watching these returns come in, I have a lot of hope for tomorrow night. Would it be a very close race? Absolutely. But I do think that when we're talking to the people that are persuadable, the people that said, like, I may not like Trump, but I think that this is bad government, if we are able to turn them out over the next day and a half, I think we're going to have a successful night tomorrow night.
You mentioned this proposition model in California and how in some cases a more sensible policy has prevailed, including just last year, right? Kamala Harris carried the state pretty overwhelmingly. It's her home state. It's a very blue place. But on that same exact day, same election, Prop 36 passed, recriminalizing crime. People had had enough. And one thing that I think is frustrating and a little bit just galling from the outside, mystifying from those of us who are just watching California politics from a distance, you had the people rise up in enormous numbers. 70-ish plus % of Californians said yes on 36. We've got to get back to basics on enforcement. And then you have a governor in Gavin Newsom who is, based on my understanding, more or less refused to implement the will of the people and has not been willing to fund the implementation of Prop 36. But he has found the money for this power grab scheme. And it looks like he might be rewarded for it, right? I mean, it's got to be maddening for you living out there, because it's maddening enough for those of us mostly insulated from California excess.
You're right, and he actually tried to hide the facts and figures from Californians and didn't want the price tag to come out until after the election. Fortunately, a memo was leaked from his Department of Finance that showed us that this election was going to cost nearly $300 million, and that was before the Secretary of State messed up all of the pre-election voter guides, and they had incorrect maps. The maps that we were voting on are actually incorrect in the ballots guides. They had to send out a follow-up postcard, and this is what happens.
Wait, hang on, real quick. He says before the screw-up, which cost even more millions, it was $300 million according to their own numbers. But I read their very slanted, loaded description that they were asking people to vote on. Oh, it's temporary. It's all these things against the partisanship in Texas. We read it verbatim on the air. They had this thing written the best way they possibly could have to confuse people and obfuscate the issue. But one of the things that they said in the actual verbiage was it would cost, if I'm not mistaken, a few $1 million, which doesn't sound really close to $300+ million.
It is not close to $300 million. And that $300 million would have funded what was asked for Prop 36, which the people actually asked for, right? This was a ballot initiative that we had to go out and get signatures to get it on the ballot. Gavin Newsom went through the legislature and got a 2/3 vote to put this partisan gerrymandering on ballot for a special election. Exactly one ballot initiative. It's not called Prop 50 because there's 49 other ballot initiatives. It's called Prop 50 because Gavin Newsom sees this as the 50-seat solution, and he is going to be the savior of the Republican. And he's going to destroy democracy and save it at the same time.
Speaking of Gavin Newsom, he gave an interview on Meet the Press. He's giving a lot of interviews. In fact, our colleague here, Tommy Lahren, pointed out it seems or feels as though this guy spends almost all of his waking hours on someone's podcast or one of his own podcasts or doing interviews. This one was at least on Meet the Press. And he said a few things that caught my attention, and I want to play them back to back for you, Jessica, starting here in cut 13. It's a quick one. It's amusing given his track record, but here it is.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
He doesn't dislike anything more in the world than politicians who sit there and lie to the public. Here he is in the same interview, cut 14.
Did you legitimately believe that he was capable of serving as president until January of 2029?
Yeah, I think my focus was frankly situational. It was making sure Donald Trump didn't get back into office to experience everything that we're experiencing today. And there was no interaction I had that suggested otherwise.
What do you say to Americans who feel misled by you and other top
misled in what
Democrats
respect? He decided to step
about the
down.
mental acuity of President Biden, that they wish you'd sounded the alarm sooner to give way for
I never
an
experienced,
open convention?
I'm not going to substitute myself for someone else or for popular opinion.
So he says he hates lying politicians more than anything, and then in the same interview says that he had no indication that suggested that Joe Biden was not up for being president till 2029. Back to back. I mean, I know what I think of that, Jessica. What do you make of that?
I mean, this is par for the course when it comes to Gavin Newsom. This is the same guy who looked us straight in the eyes and said, I did not eat indoors at the French Laundry. And then several days later, the actual pictures come out of him eating indoors with 12, 15 other people. And we weren't allowed to sit with more than, 2 other families at Thanksgiving, and we had to do it outdoors. This is a guy that, shut down our schools while his kids still went to school. This is a guy who told us that fire prevention was being done at amazing rates, and come to find out that it was less than 300% of what he said. It was just absolutely ridiculous. We get lies from this guy all of the time. So the fact that he is lying about what was going on with Joe Biden and his mental fitness to be president, it's just par for the course with Gavin Newsom.
Another prominent California Democrat whose name we mentioned a few moments ago, Kamala Harris, the former attorney general in your state, the former U.S. senator from that state, the failed presidential candidate twice, including just last year when she became the nominee after the big lie that Gavin Newsom was a part of collapsed around Joe Biden. They threw her in there, 107 days. The more people learned anything about her, the worse she did. And, of course, the rest is history. She lost. She's given a number of different interviews recently. We played last week some of the sound bites from a few of those interviews, Jessica. And one of the answers that stood out to me, there were 2 of them. One was her teeing off with Jon Stewart about the East Wing renovation in the ballroom, where she was dropping F-bombs and getting all agitated because that was what she had seen on social media, a lot of left-wing influencers getting upset about. So she decided a little bit late in the game to jump on that bandwagon. Then she also said in another interview, and she seemed very proud of herself, like there was a real profundity to this, that she wants the voting age nationally to be dropped down to 16 because of climate anxiety, I think was her number one excuse for that. It's an extremely unpopular idea, by the way. The recent poll showed that underwater by 49 points. But to me, that was a very Kamala, very clumsy pander to a certain group of voters, which leads me to believe she wouldn't be out there trying to get attention with panders like that unless she really felt like there was something out there for her in her political future. And she told BBC that she's not done, whatever that means. Given your experience with Kamala Harris out in California, what you know about her, and then based on the conversations you have with Democrats in that state, is she delusional to think that she has a political future in California or nationally? Is there an appetite from Democrats for more Kamala at this point?
So I think that when we look at it differently, look at it California separately, I don't think that she'll come back and do something specific California. I don't think she'll run for governor. I don't think she'll run for U.S. Senate again. But I do think that she still wants some role on the national stage. So looking at it from a national perspective, I think many Californians, Democrats, still want her to do those types of things. I don't think she wants to do the state-specific stuff, though. I think as a California Republican and any Republican across the country, I'm saying please do. Please do. There is nothing greater for the Republican Party than having someone like Kamala Harris that we can constantly point to all of her failures and her missteps. I think that she is the perfect candidate for the Democrat side.
Jessica Millen Patterson is the former chairwoman of the GOP in California. She's now chairing this No on Prop 50 effort. Maybe an uphill climb, but she's still optimistic. Everyone needs to vote tomorrow if you have not already participated. A lot at stake in these next couple of years out in California, no on 50 tomorrow. Jessica, thanks so much for your time.